Bruce. Okay, so learner differences. There are many differences. And so we're going to be looking at age today. Just a reminder that we are recording this and it will be put up on YouTube for you or anyone else to view after. If you don't want your image used, you can just keep your camera off. But do feel free to turn it on at any point, especially if you're speaking. It's always nice to see the speaker, but if you cannot, don't worry about it. So as mentioned, we will be looking at learner differences over the next several weeks. And I like to use this image because often when we're talking about differentiation, or actually for me in the past, when I've been talking about differentiation, it's often been in terms of assessment. And this is a very popular cartoon that speaks to why we need differentiated assessment. Because we have different abilities. And if the assessment is to climb that tree, we can see here that some of these students will do very well and some will not. And it doesn't mean that those who don't do well aren't talented, they just have different talents. And so this also highlights the need for differentiated assessment, but also just differentiation in general. So we have different abilities, things that some of us are good at that others are not, but also learners vary by age, they vary by their learning preferences, what motivates them and what interests them, among other things as well. And Delpy, I see your point. Yes, in a given class, most of your students are probably close in age, although that may be different for other people. Whereas some of the other topics, in every single class, you will have learners who have different preferences, motivations, interests, and abilities. So this particular session is a little bit different in that your class may be somewhat homogeneous in terms of age, but you may be teaching different classes. And so age is still something definitely to be aware of. And I know some of you do have a variety of ages in your classes as well. So basically, we want to highlight these differences because when we're aware of them and how they affect learners, then we can better design our classes, our lessons, our activities to make the classes as impactful and effective as possible, and also to make them as inclusive as possible. One of the main issues is when we don't account for differences, then we're not including everyone in the class. For example, in this assessment here, this poor little fish can't even begin to try. This seal can try. I don't think he'll do well. So in this session, we will have a warm-up discussion. We'll also look at the different age groups and their characteristics. Then we will analyze the suitability of activities and strategies, and then we will talk about selecting and adapting materials and activities. So, starting out with a warm-up discussion, I'm curious to know what age group you prefer to teach and why, or what age group you prefer not to teach and why. So I'll open this up to the group. You may use the chat to respond, or feel free to raise your hand in order to unmute and speak and share your ideas. I know some people have very specific groups they like to teach. Some people really don't care. And I know that for some, there are age groups that they do not like to teach. So I'm curious to know your preferences, your experience, your opinions. So we see Tiberius likes to teach 14 to 18-year-old students because they have good language foundation. Yeah, that is a good point. You're not starting from scratch with them. Some people do like that, but others do not. NK likes a similar age group because they're easier to instruct and guide. Nancy prefers to teach adult learners. Ah, yes, little children require a lot of patience, right? So there is that. Suba would prefer to teach kind of younger students between ages 4 and 10 because they're still learning. So you have kind of an empty vessel there. So Irene, you're one of those examples that gets along with any age. Evans prefers 14 to 18, similar to Tiberius and Ann Kay. I myself am kind of, I guess, in the boat with Irene. The different groups have different advantages and disadvantages. Although I will say I've never taught younger than the 3rd grade, so I've never worked with really little kids. And most of my work has been with adults, university age and older. Oh, and Nicia, you like teenagers. As does Isaac, preferring 12 to 19. Antonine likes 9 to 12. That is an interesting age group, 9 to 12. You have, they're on the cusp of a big change in life. Celestine likes 13 to 19. Charity likes 12 to 20 because they're easier to stimulate and they can remain attentive for longer periods of time. Yes, Charity, you have identified a key characteristic for that group that is not true in all of the groups. Lorian likes 18 to 25. Also, basically adults, they're independent and focused learners. That is very true. Very true. My first official teaching experience was with middle school students. They were ranging in age about 11 to 14. And I just thought it was such an interesting age group because half of them are starting puberty or even finishing puberty, and some had not even started. So in the same class, I would have what looks like a tiny little child sitting next to what looks like a grown man. I thought that was very interesting and challenging. Frederick, our chairman, has taken on the question of what you don't like to teach. And you don't like to teach below 10 because they need a lot of individual attention. That is very true. They're not so independent. Khadijah, like 7 to 20. That's a pretty big age range. You're very flexible, Khadijah. And Patricia says, I really don't mind the age group, but I find myself playing too much with the babies. Yeah, that's true. You tend to kind of get to their level. And so with little ones like that, there's a lot of play. Yes. And Nancy is agreeing with that. Yes, teenagers are a bit difficult, but they're emotional. Yes, that is very true. There is that whole aspect of their emotional sensitivity. I know that I would not want to be a parent to a teenager. The other age groups as a parent, I think I could deal with. As a teacher, I don't mind so much, but as a parent, I think because I think of myself as a teenager. All right, so we have a variety of preferences in this group, but what's very interesting to me is that both Judith and Josiah loved, a lot of you like teenagers, older ones. Anthony does not like working with babies. They are noisy. Babies need babying. It's true. But right off the bat, you are already identifying a lot of these key features of these different age groups. Something else that I think it kind of touches on, and I kind of mentioned, is that we may find our personalities changing depending on the age group. I think Patricia said something about playing too much with the babies because they're cute and you want to play with them. When I was working in Uzbekistan, this was a popular idea amongst the teachers, is that depending on the age group they taught, you would find a kind of a reflection of their personality as well. Oven and Purity are two different extremes. Oven liking 14 to 18 and Purity's cutoff is 14. Very interesting. All right, so For the purposes of this, I have broken the age groups up into 4, but you'll see it done in different ways depending on the focus that you have. That's a good point, Eunice. Yes, teenagers are at the age where they can, cooperation is one of their strengths. And they're very keen on this socially fitting in. So cooperation is definitely something we can leverage with them. So I've broken this up into children 5 to 9. Of course, if we were going deeper into this, we would want to break children up into younger children and older children. I've got preteens here as 10 to 12, teens as 13 to 17, and adults as 18 and up. And there's obviously, these aren't set cutoffs. And so there's obviously some overlap here. We're going to look at them in terms of their physicality, their cognitive abilities, so kind of their brain and thinking, their emotions, and then connected with their emotions, we have their interests and motivations. And I'll be sharing some of my knowledge based on research and classes I've done, but of course I will be also looking for your input as well. Some of you have spent years and years with these age groups, whereas some of them I've spent less time with, especially this 5 to 9. I think the students I taught were 8 at the youngest, so that's not a group that I'm so familiar with. Speaking of, so looking at children ages 5 to 9, in terms of physicality, they vary in their physical ability and size. So on the younger side, they tend to be somewhat the same size. So size, if 5-year-olds tend to be, there tends to not be that much difference in their size. But as they grow, we start to see their sizes change and their physical abilities change as well. Younger children, they struggle with just the act of using a pencil. They don't have the manual dexterity. So we often see coloring is a good task for this age group. Mary likes this age group because it's challenging for them. Whereas coloring may be enjoyable to older children, but it's certainly not the challenge it is for younger children. Things like handwriting are difficult for them. They're just not fully in control of those fine motor skills. And related to this physicality, they can't sit still for long periods of time, right? We don't see these kind of classes done as purely lecture-based classes. If you tried to lecture for an hour to a room of 6-year-olds, they would lose their minds and go crazy, and then you would go crazy too. In terms of their cognitive ability, they are not really able to focus on abstract concepts. They really need the concrete. Of course, it doesn't mean they don't have imagination. They do have imagination, but especially at the younger ages, they may not be able to fully differentiate between reality and imagination. I think many of us have dealt with small children who think maybe there's a monster under their bed, and they are sure of it because they're not able to differentiate reality and imagination. And so giving them hypothetical what if situations isn't going to work for them. They're also very focused on the self. They're not so good at imagining the viewpoints and experiences of others, although of course that means that maybe that's an area we want to work on with them. Their ability to concentrate is limited as well. Just as they can't sit still for long periods of time, they can't think or do one same task for a long period of time. They quickly become distracted or bored. And they are very emotionally sensitive, but they're also very curious. At this age, you may have crying happen easily in the classroom. Imagine if one student takes another's pencil, it may result in crying or fighting. But this sensitivity also translates to curiosity. The world is a new place to them, and so they're very curious about it. An advantage here is they very much want to please adults. Children are living in an adult's world. Adults are the queens and kings of their world, and so they're very focused on pleasing them, which is certainly not always the case with teenagers. And so this is an advantage we have with them. Another nice thing, especially at the younger age, is they have somewhat similar interests. If you talk to a group of teenagers or adults, their interests will vary widely. Whereas younger children, many of them they all like to play. A lot of them will be interested probably in animals, cartoons, games, things like that. Whereas they get older, you'll find that there's more diversity in their interests. So based on these characteristics, we want to think about what is most suitable for them to do. So often we see in classrooms with children singing, dancing, miming. These are things that allow them to be active, use their bodies rather than just sitting still. We also find they don't have the language ability so that older children have, or teenagers, both in their first language and in their second language, such as English. And so these might be more doable, accessible things for them to do instead of responding with writing or with words. Some kind of physicality might be in order. Physical games such as a board race is great for children. It gives them a chance to run and show their knowledge. They're easily attracted by colors and images. Not only are they attracted by them, but they're very helpful to provide this kind of concrete support that they are lacking, because they are not so rooted in the world and able to imagine. They're able to imagine, but they don't have these abstract abilities. So having concrete images is very helpful for them. They need clear instructions and they need close supervision because they're not so independent and they're not so able to control themselves. And what else? Those of you who work with children ages 5 to 9 or like to, what other activities do you find suitable for these age groups? Any recommendations that you find work very well? These are a bit general. You might have something more specific that you find works really well. Please feel free to share in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know what successful activities you have done with children ages 5 to 9. I find that they also like to touch things a lot too. So having different kind of manipulative things. Yeah, exactly. Margot, you and I are on the same page. Yes, motor work like paper craft, tearing papers. Yes, I think they really like that physicality. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Tiberius, matching of objects and words, even like drawing a line, or if they can physically match them, they really like that kind of stuff. Jumis, you find memorization, memory versus rote learning. Yeah, it's something manageable and controlled for them. When we try these things with older students, they start to kind of roll their eyes. But for younger children, to be able to memorize something feels like a real accomplishment for them. Oh, Nancy, outdoor activities. Yes, if you're able to do that, that is great. Yeah, if you can get them outdoors doing something, that's great. And yes, singing games, Patricia, which is perfect for them, right? Singing is great for them to be able to practice their vocabulary. They are going to get some of those grammatical structures, working on their pronunciation. Yeah, again, with the physical things they can touch, Margot, building blocks and arranging them, right? Even a small task like putting all the red ones together, putting all the blue ones together is something that is suitable for them. Speaking drills. Yes, if we have enough support for them, speaking drills can definitely work with young children. And yes, modeling, I think, is very important for this age group. Excellent. Those are all great activities we can add to our repertoire if we are working with this young group. Now, yeah, exactly. A simple jigsaw puzzle. Yes, definitely is something that is challenging for them and satisfying for them. And yeah, craft work, yes. So we often see people who work with these younger children, crafts are often a major part of what they do in the classroom because of kind of the needs and abilities of these children. I think that's part of what makes it fun. Go ahead. I hear someone talking. But they have disappeared. Lorian, that's a good question. Lorian is asking about adding these to the PowerPoint, which I am not fast enough to do on the fly here, but I will save the chat and I will put the chat in this chat. I will put this chat into our WhatsApp chat as a document. So if you want to peruse back through here, looking for ideas, that's a great idea. Excellent. Cat and mouse. Yes, very fun. So as we go on, you'll see that just because these are good for children doesn't mean that they're not good for other ages, but we will need to adapt in some ways. So moving on. Looking at the next age group, we have preteens. This is roughly ages 10 to 12. Oh, Mary, puppets. Puppets, yes. Making them and then doing things with them. Excellent. So preteens, we see more variability in their physical size and ability. So at this age, we have some are beginning puberty and even in the middle of puberty, whereas some have not even begun. So this is like that example I mentioned early on. In a classroom, you have a little child sitting next to what looks almost like an adult. And these changes can make them very sensitive. Looking like an adult can be both a good thing and a bad thing. Looking like a child still can be both good and bad. There's a lot of sensitivity involved here. At this age, they have an understanding of abstract ideas. It doesn't mean that it's their strong point, but age groups like this, they've got this grasp on the concrete, but they can also deal with abstract ideas as well. They're beginning to develop their problem-solving skills. And so this is an area that we can pursue with them. They can concentrate and focus for longer periods of time than children can. And so we don't have to worry about constantly entertaining them. Just thinking about the kind of lesson plan I would put together for children had many different things, whereas I notice as they get older and older, you might even just have one project for adults. They don't need that constant change of what they're doing. At this age, we see that social life outside the family is starting to become important. With little children, their family is absolutely most important. Of course, they like friends, but ultimately it's their family. But at this age, we see them starting to branch out and starting to be more interested in life outside the family, friends and things like that. And they're beginning to get that sense of independence. Of course, not everyone. Some children are really struggling at this age. They want to stay children. They're not happy about this change happening in their life. And so you might find that they actually act like very young children. Hey, Adam, can you do the lights? Thank you. At this age, we also see that their interests and motivations are becoming more diverse as they're starting to enter into the older ages. And so they don't all love the same things. Thank you. Therefore, group work is definitely something that they can do with a little bit less monitoring than younger students. And it might be appealing to allow them to choose their groups at times because they're interested in working with their friends and social groups. Of course, we're not going to always let them do that, but this might be something motivated to them. They're definitely interested and able to do problem solving activities and critical thinking activities in a way that children really would struggle with. You might allow them the possibility of opting out of physical activities. So if there's an activity that involves running or even standing in front of the class, you might think about ways of making them more uncomfortable. There will be students in your class at this age who do not want to be the center of attention physically because they're very uncomfortable in their bodies at this point. It might be that they are the biggest kid now in the class or the smallest. There's a lot of physical changes happening. And so if we have something, we might allow students to speak from their desks rather than coming up front if it's not absolutely necessary. So I'm not saying that we never do these things, but something we just want to be considerate of and think about. At this point, we want to be thinking about ways of giving these students more freedom. Of course, not complete freedom, but chances to choose and make choices on their own, and a little bit less supervision at this age as well. So I'm going to open this up. Those of you who are working with this age group, what do you have to add to this? Either activities or considerations for this age group. They are at a very awkward stage of life. And also remembering that this age group is not necessarily set in stone. If it goes to age 13 or starts at 9, we have flexibility there. Yeah, I agree. I think peer discussion is nice. They're able to work one-on-one and they're able to handle it. Yes, they do like these things, Jumis. They can handle the longer reading of a short novel, and they're going to be interested in it as well. Yes, and we still have drawing, but yes, we start to see more gender differences as well. That's a really important point. Role playing, yes, they get to act. I see this is popular with many of you. And storytelling, right? They have the creativity, the ability. Oh, field trips, yes. You don't have to worry about them running off necessarily either. Yes, work related to superheroes and role models. We're kind of getting that forward focus for them. Very good. Yeah, I would say drama would be totally fine, Anne. Yes, I think that they are, maybe not everyone in the class will love it, but I think a lot of them will. A chance to kind of take on this other role can be quite exciting. TPR, yes. We're talking about children enjoying physical activity, but yeah, preteens still do. So earlier I said maybe allowing them to opt out of physicality kinds of things, but they can certainly do them at their desks, right? That they can be responding in some kind of TPR ways. And yes, storytelling. They have stories to tell at this age. Excellent. Yeah, I like that, developing their talents. They're getting to an age where they are aware of their talents. If you talk to a 5-year-old, almost every 5-year-old thinks they're a good swimmer or a good singer. But when you start to get to this age, they do know their talents. And so allowing them to develop those. And yeah, I do think motor activities are a great idea for this age group. Actually, honestly, I think motor activity is great for any age group. The ways that we adapt them may need to be a little different, but yes, I wholly agree. And they do like competition as well. And yeah, drawing, writing, puzzles, those are all great. They also have better motor skills at this point. And so it may not be the challenge, the physical challenge it is for small children, but we can find ways to make it challenging and satisfying in other ways. Excellent. Okay, teenagers. This is a very controversial group. People tend to either love them or not love them. I myself like them, but as I mentioned, I wouldn't want to be a parent to a teenager. We still have some very variety. Most have physically matured or are in the process of physical maturity, and certainly by 17. Pretty much everyone is different, but we always have late bloomers as well. Yes, it can be a tough stage. And so those late bloomers can be very concerned about their physical appearance. And certainly this is an age when, especially between genders, there's a lot of attention between genders that can make them more sensitive and self-aware. Yeah, very good, Mary. It's really a period of discovery. And whether they're concerned about their maturity or not, we find that they're very concerned about physical appearance because of this factor of being attracted to the opposite gender. And so really thinking about what they look like before going to school, having to tell girls to put away their mirrors, and then guys acting out in some stupid way to get attention. So we have different issues on both sides, but both sides being very concerned about their physical appearance and what other students think about it. Cognitively, they're quite mature. They can plan, they can think logically, they can problem solve. They still might not be making the best choices in terms of planning, and so they may need some direction with that, but they do have the ability to do that. They can concentrate, they can work independently at this age if they are shown how to do it in some cases. They're very concerned about their social connections and may even prioritize these over their family connections. They're very interested in their friends. They're very interested in what their peers think about them. And so this can be a good thing, but it can also be very distracting in the classroom. We do find that they are interested in the greater world at this point. Whereas with the younger ages, they are more interested in kind of in the world directly around them. Yeah, this is a good point, Chairman. They're motivated to learn and they're responsive, but then they kind of peak and then we begin to have these elements of truancy where the greater world is beyond the school. And so they're no longer interested in school. This interest in the greater world, I think, I can give an example of when I visited Tiberius. I visited his class for writing, and I was modeling, and I used the example of Lake Victoria because it was something that we all were familiar with. And so we did a model paragraph about Lake Victoria. And then I asked them what they wanted to write about for their own writing. And I said, do you want to write about Kisumu? Do you want to write about Kenya? And most of them were saying no. And so I let them write about the place that they were interested, and they were choosing very diverse places. A few of them chose Kenya, but I had students had written on their paper, Paris, the US, Egypt, just different places. Whereas I think if we find younger ages would be very interested in just writing about the closer world around them. And that turned out to be very valuable knowledge working with Tiberius's group. I did a similar class today with Ovin's group, and I didn't even ask them. I modeled with Kenya, but for their own writing, they got to choose the place. We see that they're beginning to be motivated by future goals, and I think the chairman highlighted the downside of this. This motivation of future goals may be so strong that they may no longer connect to school. They may be working instead and not so interested in school. And yes, they do have a sense of critical reasoning, Evans, and we want to harness that. So because of these attributes, some things that are suitable for them. We talked about problem solving and critical thinking activities with these preteens. Here, we want to make sure that they have real world applications. Teenagers don't want to just have imaginary things. They want to have something that's concrete. So Lori, this might be something about movies, it might be something about books, but they don't necessarily want to talk about themselves, their family, their hometown. It might be a singer that they really like. It could be superheroes, something like that. And so again, this real world application, when we're doing activities and assignments, it's very motivating to connect these to future student goals. So having students think about what are their future goals? Are they going on to the university? If they're not, still, how can we apply what they're doing in school and make it relevant to them? They're no longer interested in just doing what the teacher tells them because the teacher said so. They're starting to think about, why am I doing this? What is the point of this? And so we want to make sure that we have an answer to that. They are interested in independent work, and they should be doing independent work. They're getting to the age where they're going to be independent. And so we want to foster those abilities. Again, we might offer them the possibility of avoiding physical activities, especially if they're like kind of the little one in the class who hasn't gone through their growth spurt yet, things like that. Yes, good point, Lillian. It's not that we're just letting them go completely to be independent. We do still need to monitor, but we're starting to help them instill those skills of self-monitoring as well. And then, of course, opportunities for choice and self-direction, where not everyone in the class is doing exactly the same thing all the time. It doesn't mean, of course, it doesn't mean that they have complete choice and complete self-direction, but we are looking to help them build those skills to learn how to manage their own time. If they're working in a group, how to settle differences amongst themselves, how to problem solve using their own skills and strategies. And of course, we're supporting them in doing this, not just saying, figure it out yourselves. All right, so what else? We have a lot of people here who like working with teenagers. What other things can we suggest? Yeah, that's true. Little children might like pets, but they don't look after them very well. Whereas teenagers at this age can handle that kind of responsibility, right? They may be in charge of some livestock at home. And so that may be something that is relevant to them. And we see in the household, they probably have more jobs that are their responsibility. They may be looking after younger siblings as well. And so I want to harness this sense of responsibility with them. We don't want to be treating them like little children, because they are clearly not little children at this age. Oh, sorry, it's a bunch of things just shot by. So Khadijah says educational games, projects, writing, reading contests, concerts, art competition, digital activities to enhance their digital literacy skills. Yes, all of those things. And I'm glad you mentioned digital things. This is very relevant to them, right? We know that all ages like digital things, but most teenagers at this point have some kind of social media profile, are active in some way. And so we want to make sure that's what's one way to appeal to them, and also want to make sure that we're building in some of the responsibilities of being a citizen of the digital world. And yes, so the greater world connection, Nancy, current affairs is something they may be interested in, but yes, not very in depth. But yes, we see a lot more interest in current affairs than we would in younger age groups. And so this is something that we might be able to leverage with them. They are obsessed with social media, which can be really annoying, but can also be really helpful. We can give them tasks, writing tasks where maybe the writing happens on social media. Or maybe we use social media as a text. Maybe there's some sort of meme or something going around that we can discuss. Yeah, they do love to go away from their town or home, right? They want to see the outer world. This is part of their normal teenage development. Financial literacy is something that is very relevant at this age too, right? That they are starting to have maybe some of their own money, maybe they're working a little bit, and they need to be responsible with that. Self-recognition, very important, Evans. They're getting to that age where an adult is not always going to be telling them if they did a good job or a bad job, and they need to start recognizing that themselves. Oh, Judith, this is very important. Yes, trust is a big thing here. Children kind of inherently trust. Teenagers really need, they are skeptical, right? So earning their trust is difficult, but very, very valuable. It makes a big difference. Yes, guided student tasks and projects. So it's not a free-for-all with them, but definitely this guiding. Identifying their areas of interest. Yes, exactly. Right. So having that real world application, that direct connection to things that interest them outside of school. Ownership. Yes, this is a big deal for them. And yeah, there's emotion attached to that. Something that we want to be aware of. Yes, they are interested in what others say about them. Peer pressure is a big thing here, right? Which can be negative. It can also be positive. If we have a good sense of community, peer pressure can work for us. And that's it, I think, very much attached to what Judith was saying about trust with the teacher. If the students trust the teacher, we have a strong sense of community, class as community, then the peer pressure is going to actually work to our advantage. Inspiration and motivation platform. Yes, I like that. I think those are very important for teenagers. Field trips, excursions, hot seating, session debates, presentations, group work. Yeah, guided and supervised, right? Very good. Khadijah agrees. Oh, fashion, yes, right? Definitely with teenagers, having to do with that, that caring about their self-image, what they look like. Excellent. This is a good point too. Thank you, Chairman. Yes. Those who are coming from broken homes, I think when they're children, people are on the lookout for them. But as they get older, people are not so much on the lookout for them. And a teacher is someone who can connect with them and notice that they may need some guidance and help. Yes, definitely open-ended questions that encourage self-expression. Excellent. And this is a great place to teach them to respect each other. Competition, rewards, and facilitation. Excellent, excellent. Our last group, an oratory contest. That sounds like fun. Those speaking skills, right? It's something that's valuable and applicable and also fun and competitive. Excellent. So originally, I did not have adults in this because I was thinking about how a lot of you are teaching primary and secondary school. And then I was thinking we do have university teachers here with us. And then I was also thinking about how some of you do have adults in your secondary classrooms because they started late or they had to take a break and are coming back to education. Many of you do have adults in your classrooms. So as we know, adults are physically mature. They have this ability to think logically and problem solve. They don't have some of these disadvantages that younger students have. They have personal experience that can really help them. They can think back on their things that they've learned through their lives that can really help. It can also hinder learning. Their experience may have been negative and they may have a very negative background that they're bringing in. So something that is very advantageous with this age group is that they are there by choice. They are adults, they don't have to be in school if they don't want to, and so they are there by choice, whereas children are not there by choice. So this is something that we can leverage. But because they're students by choice, we need to make school a choice that is a logical choice for them, right? If they're not learning things that they find to be useful, they're not going to continue coming to school. They're interested and motivated by the real world, especially things related to their career and financial opportunities. And if they don't see how school is helping them in that way, then school will no longer be something that they choose to do. So whatever they're doing, they need to be able to directly link to their personal goals. This is true of teenagers as well, but this is especially true of adults. The outside world may also interfere with their learning. Of course, this is true for any age. What's going on at home can interfere, but we know adults have a lot more responsibilities. They may have a job outside of school. They may be responsible for bills. There's a good chance they have children of their own at this point as well. And something that we shouldn't forget, that just because someone is an adult doesn't mean that they are fully mature. Studies have shown that the human brain does not finish doing what it does until the mid to late 20s. And so we find that definitely teenagers, but even people in their early and middle 20s don't always make the best choices. They don't always think logically. They may do things sometimes that are irrational or not well thought out because of their brains that are still finishing the maturation process. So all of these things about adults mean that connection to the real world and the students' goals are absolutely essential. We want to be able to build on these students, their experiences, their interests and strengths. They should be able to do both individual and group work. As adults, they should be able to work individually, but we also know that group work, collaboration, teamwork is an important part of adult life. And so this is something they need to be able to do as well. They may require some flexibility in timing and outcome because of what else they've got going on outside. They don't want to be treated like children. We need to acknowledge them as adults and treat them as such. Anything else we want to add to those of you who are either working with adults in university or perhaps have adults in their secondary school classes? It can be challenging to work with adults, I think, in the secondary school setting where you also have teenagers as well. I think with university, it may be a little bit easier. Everyone there is kind of on the same level in terms of goals and motivations.
Hello, Mina.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Now, some of these adult learners in secondary schools, with my experience, they sometimes feel out of place, especially when they find that the teachers are either younger than them, the teachers who teach them. And it's a very big problem because when maybe they don't want sort of, if they cannot learn in class, they are slow learners, some of them, but they quite feel out of place when they are taught by the teachers who are younger than them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that goes back to this issue of that relationship with the teacher, that relationship of trust. If your teacher is younger than you, that's really going to be a factor, right? Why should I listen to this young person? What do they know? Right. And feeling very out of place. I can imagine there's a reason why that adult is still in secondary school. And so that can definitely be an issue. Thank you for sharing that. So we see, Margot, that's a good point. Private correction Very good, right? If you have an adult learner in with your secondary learners, you cannot yell at them like a child in front of the other students, right? So private correction would be a great way to deal with that. Nancy says for the mature adults, they follow directions of the opinion leaders into being a facilitator with them rather than a teacher. Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Especially if you're younger than those students. And yes, that's positive, Antonine, right? They can be very enthusiastic. They're there by choice. And that is something that we really want to take advantage of. But in order to take advantage of that, we need to make sure that we are making that choice something that is attractive to them. If they come to school and they don't see how it's helping them other than they're going to get that piece of paper, then they're going to start to look for other options instead. Or be disruptive, which is a whole other issue. Yes, right? They have their set goals. They're there to achieve them. And so if we do things right, we can be a real partner, a real facilitator with that, if things are done right. All right, I'm going to move on, although you can feel free to keep adding things. All right, so we're going to go into breakout rooms, and these are going to be random breakout rooms, although then after I'll let you choose your breakout rooms. So here are 4 general activities. We have team debate, poster presentations, role playing, writing a story. And I'm curious to know which group you think would it be most suitable for? And there might be more than one answer. And why? And if you think it's suitable for more than one group, would you be doing anything different for the group? Oh, hang on, let me go back to the chat for a second. So Lorraine says, one of my students, 15 to 18 above this age, I always struggled to integrate him in the learning process. I tried to talk to him about his best learning style, but I failed to get him. What can I do? This is, so of course, always remember there are just some people who are difficult. Lauren, you might ask about the goals of this student and try to direct them, connect directly to the goals. And if there are teachers who are having better luck with this student, you might also see what they're doing that can be appealing. But yeah, I think it would be hard to integrate that student, right? Anne is mentioning the self-drive, so we want to harness that. And patience. Oh, that's a good point, Nancy. You know, I'm thinking about older people being very comfortable in the digital world, but those who aren't, that makes them stick out even more. Oh, that is a very good point. Okay, so going back to this, we're going to go into breakout rooms. In your breakout rooms, you're going to talk about these 4 general activities. And do you think they'd be most suitable for which age group? You, of course, may have different opinions, and you may find that each one is suitable for multiple age groups. If you think so, why? There's no right answer to this. In fact, I think an argument can be made for every answer, but this is just encouraging us to think about the different considerations for the age groups, as well as how we might change or adapt some of these things to make them relevant and interesting to these age groups. All right, so I am going to all right, I think we've got everyone back from the breakout rooms. Do I have any groups who want to share what they thought, or maybe you had an interesting debate where some people felt very strongly about one idea, but someone else felt strongly about another? Josiah, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi everyone. Good to talk today. much of the time was like we were listening, but at least we had time to discuss in groups. Well, in a group one, and well, I'm not the one. I'm just introducing the person who's going to talk, but we have discussed all these the 4 activities: team debate, role play, poster presentation, and writing a story. I just want to say a bit of about debate. We felt that team to 17 years, the teenagers, and also above 18, because they have details for discussion and some facts that they can discuss about. I'll ask my friends to continue to add something because we are together. But the hand. I just want to, yes, thank you.
Thanks, Josiah.
As I was with Josiah in group 1, we discussed team debate. Children of 5 to 9 years are good with poster presentations because they are visual, they like visuals. And they can post, they can paint, they can do anything on the posters. We also saw that preteens of 10 to 12 are good with role play because they are naturally playful and they will be a better place to be engaged in activities that are involving. For teens 13 to 17, we saw that they will be good with team debate because their language skills are well developed. They love being challenged and they love new challenges, and they're explorers. Naturally, they want to explore and learn. So for teens 13 to 17, we saw that team debate is okay. Adults 18 and above are good with writing because they have now the foundations of paragraphing, sentence structures, punctuation. They are well versed with the description and all this creative writing. So adults of 18 plus can be good with writing. Although we also saw that 18 plus are also good with team debate because they also naturally, they have a good, the critical thinkers. They are critical thinkers and they can think. Thank you very much. That was group 1.
Awesome. Thanks, Tiberius, for adding on to what Josiah was saying. And nice job, team group 1, talking about the strengths and also the interests. Margot, go ahead.
Good evening. We were in group 6 with Caroline, Antoinette, and Robina, and we were able to discuss all the points. So for the team debate, we said that teenagers and adults are able to do both of them because one, they're mature and they understand more concepts for the debates. They have a wider knowledge to reason out well. And again, we see the teenagers, they love competition. So during the debates, they'll be able to compete and appreciate one another. Then we also went for poster presentations. We saw it can be done by all the categories. It can be done by all the categories, given that children can have simpler posters with the preteens, then the teenagers and adults are able to do better poster presentations whereby they can attract a bigger crowd. Like for instance, if it's during an election of the leadership in schools, they'll be able to put their poster and do the elections for the other students to vote for them during the elections. Then they also appreciate creativity. So the adults and the teenagers will be able to design a very good poster and appreciate also the creativity. Then in the role play, we saw that all the ages are also able to do role playing because we have roles for every age group. And lastly, storytelling. Storytelling is also a concept for different age groups. So even children from 5 to 9 will be able to write a story Like we already know, even 9 years are already doing compositions in their schools. Yeah, so writing a story is also for all the age groups. Yeah, unless Akina Robina and Caro and Antoinette have anything to add, I think I've given out the points, all the points. Thank you.
Thanks, Margot. I liked your point about the poster presentation is fine for any age, depending on how simple or complicated we make it, right? And so by scaling that, we can make it appealing for any age. Purity, go ahead.
Okay, I was in room 5, and our thinking is along, like most people have shared, but we felt like debate could be comfortable with preteens, teens, because we thought adults might be a bit not comfortable with the debate, as they may not be so much argumentative. We thought about debate, the teens and the preteens can argue out a topic that has been given to them. And then on role play, we thought it is appropriate for all age groups, depending on the task that is given to each. As we looked at like the very young ones, they would do role play about small children, maybe their roles, taking even adult roles. We mostly see them do that. And then as the age goes different up, as they get to preteen, teen, and adult, now here they'll play roles differently. So we felt it is appropriate at all level. Then poster presentation, mostly on poster, it's normally done, and then a lot of explanation. In our room, we thought a poster presentation would do well with the adults and teens. Then writing a story also, we thought the preteens and teens will be comfortable writing a story, as it doesn't involve a lot of talking. We thought this age group, they are a bit keen on the reaction of other people when they do something practically. So they would rather write and hand over what they have written for you to read and maybe make your judgment, not face-to-face doing a presentation. That's what we thought in room 5. Thank you.
Thanks, Purity. That's a very interesting point you make. Yeah, you're right. That at that age, they may feel much more comfortable kind of giving it to you, and then they don't have to see your reaction to what they've produced necessarily. Thank you. And Celestine, you'll be our last speaker on this topic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mina. I was in group 8. And for team debating, we felt that teens and adults who are going to do it better, since most teens are argumentative in nature. They want to argue out, my point is better than your point. So they want to bring out their debating skills at this age. Poster presentations, we felt that children would benefit more, since visuals will aid them to understand maybe a concept better due to colors used in the posters. Role play, we felt that children and adults can do this well. One, because sometimes you give out roles in children and I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I'm going to be a nurse in this. So they're going to do well in role play, and also adults, because like scripts, they do scripts, yeah, in adults. And then writing a story, we felt that all the groups can write a story depending on the context, even though children will not have that creative ability as adults do, but they can all write a story. Yeah, so that is what we discussed in group 8. Thank you.
Celestine, I think those are some really good points about how we can make those adjustments depending on the context. And actually, I have some interesting thoughts based on this. Yes, good point, Metrine. Debate, if you're going to have a successful debate or not, I think a lot of it depends on the topic, right? If we're talking about adults, we want to make sure that it's something that's motivating for them. That's a fun thing to do, role-playing movie roles. So I am of the opinion, actually, I'm going to go back, that all of these things are possible for all of these age groups, depending, yes, very good, poster on strengths, depending on how we do it. So depending on several things. So we can make these changes by changing the objective. So what do we want students to be able to do? So children age 5 may not be able to write a story, but they might be able to tell a story. I remember in first grade, they had older kids come into our class and we told them a story and the older kids wrote it for us because we weren't able to write at that age. And actually, I got my story published in the newspaper. So I had the ability to think of an interesting story, but I didn't, I couldn't have, it would have taken me forever. I couldn't spell the words. And so we might think about changing the objective. The topic, I think this was highlighted by what we were just saying. Anybody can debate, even children can debate. If you ask them, you know, what's better, pink or blue, or something very basic. Of course, the way they debate will be different. The mode of delivery. We think of speaking and writing. It might be drawing. If we want to really challenge adults, the mode of delivery might be that they have to make a post on social media to make it more interesting. So maybe they're not doing a poster presentation, maybe they're doing putting something on social media with a visual. The instructions, how simple or how complex can vary and make it more appropriate or less appropriate. Children may need more instruction, whereas adults may need less, or children may need simpler instructions where adults may be able to handle more complicated ones. The amount of freedom, right? The older we get, the more freedom that we would want to afford the students, and of course, the level of support. With little children, you would want to be supervising each and every step. And as we get older, we want to be doing a little bit less for them. If you're interested in this, there is a great article on teachingenglish.org, which is put out by the British Council, with some suggestions, not just for adapting activities, but also materials. Because of time, we are going to skip this. I was going to have you adapt for age groups, but actually, I don't think it's necessary also because in the explanations you were given, you were just basically talking about the ways you would adapt these different activities for different groups. And so I think you have met that objective. So just a couple words from me, and then I'll turn it over to the chairman. And then I am going to run off because some of you may know the RELO, the Regional English Language Officer, has come to Kisumu. So I'm going to go meet up with her, and then some LPAC members will meet up with her tomorrow as well. So I'm going to be dashing off in a moment. In 2 weeks, we're going to continue on the topic of learner differences. We're going to be looking at learner preferences and multiple intelligences. So we'll look at these different preferences, things that we can do differently that we normally do so that we can meet the needs of these learners. 2 resources that were used for this are here, and a lot of you in the, Margot, I know you're a big fan of Joan Shin. She is one of the writers of this book, and she also has another book on her specialty is young learners, but she's very interested in these characteristics of different age groups and how we can kind of harness those characteristics. And then last thing from me is that some of you expressed interest in presenting to the group. We have some set topics, and if you had mentioned one of those, I'll be contacting you about those topics as we get closer. But if you are interested in presenting on a topic that wasn't mentioned in the Google form that was sent out last month, then do contact me because I love presenting, but this is also a forum for you all to share your knowledge and to get practice at it. And also we have a conference coming up in April, so it will be good practice. That's, I don't know, growth and development in psychology. Definitely. All right, I will turn this over, I think, to the chairman, although I see Austin is here as well. So I'll turn it over to LPAC administration for final thoughts.
Yes, Austin is around. I know he's held up somewhere. Anyway, Mina, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. It was quite enjoyable. I enjoyed it, and the session was quite interactive. Also, I would like to thank all of the members who attended. Their contribution was quite immense, and I'm very happy because they were actively involved throughout. So I'd like to thank them very much for their attendance and participation. And I would like just to encourage those who are not enrolled as fully paid as LPAC, at least to pay so that they become fully paid members of LPAC, because there are lots and lots of opportunities for fully paid up members. We are in partnership with the American Embassy, and there are opportunities that will only go to the fully paid up members. Our treasurer, Austin, will share the pay bill and how to pay, how to become a member. Otherwise, thank you very much. And we look forward to meeting tomorrow to have a chat with Relo in Kisumu. Thank you. Unless Tiberius has something to say. Tiberius?
I want to appreciate Mina sincerely for the wonderful presentation. At least now I can have diverse approaches. We are dealing with learners who cut in between as young as 13 to, I have a 22-year-old actually. I have a 22-year-old. So I think this is very, very, very relevant to our situation. Thank you so much. And as LPAC, we wish all of us all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tiberius. I know Austin is committed elsewhere, but thank you very much. Unless Rukia has something to say, Rukia?
No, Chairman, I'm actually
Oh, Austin is around, yeah. Welcome, Austin.
okay.
Maybe what I just want to add before Austin, as I thank you all for coming in, but I wanted to remind members that we will be having the school session next week on 17th, and I'll reshare the poster. We shall be having a creative writing session for the learners, and we have some pre-session activities that we would like them to do. So in case your school is interested in joining, this is a virtual session. You can get in touch. I'll share the poster so that you can get maybe my contacts from that. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Austin.
Okay, thank you. For me, I just wanted to say one thing about today's session compared to all the sessions. I think today's session covered everyone. Because one of the challenges that I noticed in the group is when I bring the early childhood teachers, most of them will leave. But I think this session focused on everyone. And I think what we are going to do as LPAC is we are going to sit down so that we can see how we can capture that, so that we know everyone is taken care of. Actually, I felt today's session was quite good because all the teachers in the platform that we have were well catered for. Yeah, so thank you very much, Mina, for the choice of the class, and given that you had a broad thinking, because actually today the whole of people who are on the LPAC forum were taken care of. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that those who are not yet on the platform, Mina, maybe you can type my number there. They can send me a chat. Yeah, a chat or an SMS. Yeah, so maybe Mina, you can give it like a minute because I know you are dashing off so that they can get that number so that we can add them and then also they can get to learn more about the things we do. Because I know the chairman has talked about registration and people might not be understanding why is this registration coming from and also the opportunities. So you guys will also have to get to hear what opportunities are there. That's why it's even some of us here are just dashing off to go get those opportunities so that they can benefit you people. So thank you very much. Let me hand it over back to my chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Austin. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you much for the attendance and participation. Thank you, Mina. I think now we are free. You can maybe say your last word and we can leave you to go and meet Relo.
Thanks very much.
Back to you, Mina.
Thank you. I just put Austin's number in the chat, and as I mentioned on Lorian's suggestion, I will share the text of the chat because there were a lot of great ideas for working with different age groups. So you'll find Austin's number at the very end of that, and if you're looking for those activities that you all mentioned, you'll find them earlier on. So I'll be sharing that, and I'll also share the video link as well. They will be later on this evening when I come back from dinner with the Relo and hopefully get information on our grants and all kinds of stuff. So I'll see 2 of you tomorrow, and the rest of you I'll see in 2 weeks. I hope you all stay well, and I look forward to more interesting conversations on the WhatsApp group. It's been very enjoyable. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.